Good afternoon. Happy Wednesday. I'm Valerie Zolezzi Wyndham, a United Latinas board member, and I'm so happy to be here with you all today and to welcome my very special guest, Cecilia Cossio. Hi, Cecilia. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine. Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
You're welcome. And it was so wonderful to be with you in person a few weeks ago at the Brave Voices Conference, and so good to continue the conversation today.
Absolutely. I'm really excited to be here. And yes, that conference was absolutely phenomenal. I've been talking to many of my Latina peers here about it. So hopefully next year they'll be able to join us.
Awesome. We would love that. So I want to have a powerful conversation with you today about building wealth through real estate. But before we get to the questions, I'd love for you to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your work.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Cecilia Cossio, and I'm the founder of CEO. I'm the founder and CEO of Next Gen Legacy. I created Next Gen Legacy out of a need that I felt needed to be pushed out to our community and women like us, and that's to create generational wealth. And I do that through real estate investing, education, leadership development, and creating attainable housing for people in our community. So I currently lead property and asset management services for thousands of units through my business, which is what I did for 30 years through my W-2. So I think that my greatest hope is to continue helping others step into ownership opportunities, wealth building, and purpose-driven leadership. I feel very passionate about it, and I have seen the difference that it has made in my life and those around me, and want to continue doing that. So that is what I do.
Thank you, Cecilia. And I'm excited to hear about this as I explore this for myself. And I know a lot of other Latinas and other women who dream about building wealth and security, and so I really look forward to this conversation. I also love that you talked about purposeful leadership, and I think when we have had conversations in the past, that has really resonated with me, and I hope that today people who are listening will hear that purposeful leadership that you are bringing to your work, and that we are trying to cultivate in the United Latinas space.
Yeah.
So my first question for you is, how can being in the right room influence your financial growth?
Well, I think it provides you a different experience. So if you're looking to do real estate, invest in real estate, what you do is you get into those rooms with those people that are already doing it. It helps change your mindset. It opens up different opportunities, and it really helps you elevate yourself to a level that you're not familiar with, if it's not something you've done before. So one of the things that I saw on one of my old boss's desk was how to be a billionaire. And so when I started thinking about that, I'm like, he's already reached certain levels. Now he's taking it up another level. That made me look into masterminds and networking events that could bring me around other people who were investing into what I wanted to do was multifamily deals at the time. So, and because that's what I've known, that's my superpowers, running property and asset management. So I joined a mastermind and a education program, and that took me into the different rooms where I got into my first partnership. So it's just about being around those that are already doing what you're doing.
Thank you. I want to ask a follow-up question to that.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first time we try to enter that room, it can feel a little scary, and then it gets easier. And so do you remember what you did to help yourself have the comfort to enter that space? Or if you didn't have the comfort, a practical tool that you used to take that jump?
Prayer. I'm going to tell you absolutely. Sometimes we don't really realize the value we bring. Stepping into those rooms for myself, as a property and asset management professional, I thought because these people had millions and millions of dollars in assets, it was scary for me because I like providing value, and I didn't really understand at that time the value I could actually bring to the table until I started listening to them. But it really took believing in myself. It took me stepping out of my own comfort zone and saying, hey, like, you run these deals for these type of people in the past, and you have, sold off millions of dollars in assets. You know how to run these deals. You just need to know how to buy them now. You need to understand what that process is from, a capital stack side, or from, well, the financing side is in how you create that capital stack, how you raise money. I always thought, well, I don't have millions of dollars sitting in my account, so there's no way that I can buy these. And then the more I started learning the other side of the business deal, the more I'm like, hey, I can do this. Again, I put myself into those rooms by getting out of my comfort zone. And that's the first strategy is, what is it that you want? What is it that you really want to do? And you're going to have to dig in there, get out of your comfort zone, figure out what that path looks like, reach out to people like myself or others that are already doing it, and step into it. It's getting into those networking events. I'm going to tell y'all, like, I paid a lot of money to get into these rooms, but that's not always the way that you have to start. I suggest that you go to Eventbrite and see what's in there for, like, if you want to do real estate investing, go look for real estate investing. If you want to do photography, go look for photography. See what people are doing around you that aligns with your vision and your mission for your future.
I love that, Cecilia. Thank you. I want to punctuate what you said about that you had value, you just hadn't seen it. I think one of the powerful things that we bring when we're in rooms where Latinas are maybe underrepresented is a lot of information about our sector, right? And relationships that aren't already in that room. And so we do have value. It's just identifying it, having confidence, and then figuring out how we leverage it, right?
Yeah, it's really important for us to understand ourselves and what we do from, I'll use myself as an example, using my property and asset management skill set and pushing it out there, bringing that understanding, that experience has moved the needle for assets that I really didn't think I could be involved in. And I think we fail to do that, to see that in ourselves at times because of the way we're raised to be humble, to be, mindful, to not speak loudly. And when you are told like you're being too much, or you're being too loud, or you're being too aggressive, sometimes, it's like, well, when I look back, I was like, no, I was actually just speaking my mind, and I was being very clear in my expectation. I was being very clear in what I was providing and what we expect in return, or what we feel we should be able to do in return. And but we quiet ourselves for the sake of others. And I learned probably 3 to 5 years ago to stop doing that. Mm-hmm. I'm very mindful of people. I'm very mindful of people's feelings, but I am going to be true to myself, and I'm going to make sure that other women like me are true to themselves and aren't quieted down because they are able to speak their mind. Being real and being authentic and being forthright is not a bad thing. It's how we communicate it and how we react to others that may be offended by it, what makes a difference.
Yeah, I love that, Cecilia. And I also think that we sometimes sometimes it may not even be that people are offended by it. Sometimes people may simply be surprised by it or surprised to see that in you. And we do it to each other. So I think the invitation that I want to make to women who are listening is, that when you see a woman being sure of herself and maybe being louder than you are used to seeing her, catch yourself before you either judge that or criticize that, and instead figure out how you can support it, and how you can speak with that kind of a confidence in your own voice as well, because I think that's also really, really important. And
Yeah.
that brings me to my next question, which is about, the first question was about how do we get into the right room. Sometimes we might end up in the wrong room. And so what do you do to make sure that you get into that right room and not a wrong room? Or how do you
Well,
exit yourself, right, if you're in that wrong room?
if you're in that wrong room, you're going to know it. I think people know, they have a gut feeling.
Mhm.
I have found that in this sector that I'm in, sometimes people are so eager to get in a deal that they may compromise what they really believe in. And if you do that, just take a step back and just say, you know what? No, I'm not moving forward in, with that, or that's not really what I'm aligned with. Or sometimes you don't know until you get into that area, and then you're like, whoa, like this isn't really aligned with my future vision. It doesn't mean that those people in those rooms are bad. They just have a different alignment than you. And so you need to pivot. And I think it's being honest with yourself, and making that decision and making that move. You will know, because we know when our gut tells us something isn't right, it's not right. Sometimes we don't listen, right? But it's important that when you see red flags, when you see things that are not aligned with what you believe in, take a step back.
Yeah.
Immediately take a step back and know that, there are other groups out there. There are other people out there. There are other opportunities out there. Sometimes, we have to allow God to close one door before another one will open. And when that, other door opens, it's probably even a greater opportunity for you.
Yeah, I think sometimes doors also close on us and it's a gift, and that it maybe at the time we don't see as a gift because we're disappointed, but I really do believe that sometimes hard things happen to us, and that's it's a sign that we should be on another path.
It's I and my sister too, we say rejection is protection.
Oh, I love that. Rejection
Yeah.
is protection. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's right.
So
Now, sometimes I know that I have in the past felt like yes, I'm nervous or something is making me uncomfortable, but other people are telling you it's a good idea, or I might have, especially when I was younger, questioned whether my gut was correct. How do you, and it's maybe specifically in real estate, can you speak to how you can check your gut to make sure
well,
that you're moving in
okay,
the right direction?
I'm going to tell you guys. So, the numbers don't lie. Okay. So, when I talk about the gut, that's a whole different, piece of this. Okay. But when it comes to real estate, the numbers don't lie. I had a conversation with somebody, and we were talking about an opportunity that they wanted me to consider. And so it turned into me interviewing them through the process that they were in. And I think that is really what I did. I started talking about the numbers, because no matter what, the numbers don't lie. And in my field, and what I do from my position in these partnerships, is I provide information based on my 30 years of experience, and the stats that I receive from the different organizations that are in the multifamily field. So, I can tell you what the cost per unit is on maintenance or payroll or insurance or what the average cost per unit for specific states, for specific areas, for the types of properties. And that is definitely something that I have available to me and what I know how to do. But even if you don't have the multifamily experience, when you look at real estate, if you don't understand the numbers, then take some education courses so you can understand how to dig down into it, at least some. But a underwriting spreadsheet is just that whatever numbers I plug in to make it look good can be what is populated out to you, right? So understand what you're looking at, and then understand when you get true hard numbers, like they are what they are. So you got to understand what the backdoor numbers are in order to understand what the front numbers are. And they don't lie. Like you can't make up a story. If the rent in a unit is $1,500, you can't all of a sudden say you're going to be able to get $1,800 or $2,000. Well, that's not what you're getting today. So that's what I mean by the numbers don't lie is, this is what they're getting. This is a hope, but understand that you should only buy it on what they're actually getting today.
Right. I love that. Well, and I love what you said about you interviewing them. And that's something that in my company, Promoting Good, we do leadership and culture work, and our clients interview us. And I often tell people, no, yes, they're interviewing us. I'm interviewing them, right?
Yes.
See what their values are, to see if there's alignment. And so we have to do that to protect ourselves and to make sure that if we're building a collaboration where we're going to be working together, we're all, we all share values and are operating under the same information. So I love that you also talked about data. So you want to ask for data and then you want to verify data.
Yeah, it's really important. When as I tell some of my mentees, it's great to get into these deals. I'm never going to make a decision for anybody that I'm mentoring. I'm going to give you all sides. And that's what I was telling this person yesterday is I'm going to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly. You can make a decision based on what you're going to make. Just like I'm going to make a decision based on the information that I'm getting from the person that I'm speaking to. When I do property and asset management, or when I get asked to be on deals, I really do dig in now into what the information is that I'm reading. And I ask questions that I may not have asked the first few times, only because I was still learning on the ownership side of things. Now, the deals that I'm in are still great deals, but I dig in even deeper now because of the experience that I have gained through this. And the gentleman that I was talking to yesterday, I was telling him, like, you really have to pay attention to the details because, again, I'm going to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly. When you go do the underwriting, you're going to present what you're going to present. But just know, me as a partner with anybody, my name is my brand, just like your name is your brand. And I will not compromise that. I won't compromise my values. I will not compromise my brand. I have to look at my children and my grandchildren in the eye. And I have to know that everything I'm doing with people's money, because what happens is people invest with me. They trust me with their money. And I protect that like it's my children's money, because it is my children's money. The money I invest belongs to my children and my grandchildren. And so I really cherish that like it's my own, and I don't compromise that for anybody. I don't care. You could promise me $1 million. If I don't believe in it, if I wouldn't put my money in it, I'm not going to take your money. And so like, I really lead with that every time. I tell my mentees, make sure that's what you're doing, and make sure that you know who you're partnering with, and that you believe in the deal, because sometimes we do things just to have it on our resume, and that doesn't always end up in the doesn't always have the greatest end.
Right.
So
and it sounds like relationships are at the core of what leads you and decision making. Am I hearing that right?
Well, yes. My relationships with, I really, I believe that every person we meet is brought into our life for a reason, whatever it is, either as a lesson to walk away or whatever,
Right,
or
in
to
both
help
ways.
them, right? They're here for a reason, and so my job with every interaction I have with people is to provide value. What can I do for them? How can I help them? And in real estate, that's part of it, but that's kind of how I live. Like as a leader, how can I help my team members grow? As an investor, how can I grow people's money? As a community member, how can I help? If I can't help somebody with an asset, I will try to partner them up or connect them to somebody that is aligned with what they need. Because I'm not everybody's cup of tea. Like I may not be a fit for every person that I come in contact with. But I think that I can probably connect them to somebody. I have a lot of connections. And if I can't, then the person that I can connect them to, maybe they can connect them to somebody. I try to align myself with people that have the same mindset and are always about providing value.
Mm.
So that's really important.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think that is very important, and especially in our community. We, I am in the work that I do with promoting good, I may not always be the right consultant for a client, or my team may not be the right partner. And I think that it is very important to have a network and to share opportunities with others who might be the right fit for this client. And I think sometimes scarcity mindset can make it hard for us to share those opportunities and to say no, even if our gut is telling us that maybe it's not right. And so I love that you are talking about the importance of having that broader network and of giving opportunities to others and not seeing that as something that means you're losing, but actually we're all winning.
Yeah. Yeah, I will tell you, like within the investor pools that we all have here, people don't always like to share their investor information, which I get. Like, hey, that's what you do, whatever you feel is right for your business. I'm a little different. I'm going to introduce my investors to different people because if my investor feels that a deal out there is better for them than the one that I can provide, that is their decision. And while yes, I could use their 25,000 or I could use their 50,000 or 100,000, whatever it is that they choose to invest at the time, it could go somewhere else. But my mindset is, well, it wasn't meant to be in my deal. Now, I will do everything I can to provide the right asset to the investor, not necessarily just have a pool of investors and bring them into every asset, because not every asset is built for every investor. Some are riskier than others. And, they're all risk. Let me put that disclaimer out there. They're all risk. But some are riskier than others. And there's some investors that'll take, that are okay with taking more risk than others. So it's really understanding who your investor is and doing what's best for them and their family. Like, I think that's vital. And that is, something that's not always common. There are people out there that do the same thing I do, but typically it's keeping that investor pool to yourself. I'm like, hey, there's people out there that, work on AI products, or there's a startup, or, whatever it is. Like, there's a lot of money out there. It's really just making sure that your people are able to connect with each other. So
I love that. So I'm going to invite you to close with a personal experience where being in the room made a significant impact to your journey. So tell us a story to close.
actually, I thinking about this yesterday, and I was driving home after my conversation, and I was, thanking God for all the opportunities I've had, because joining that first mastermind, I was able to meet my first partner, who is a Latina out of the Bronx, and she's a phenomenal real estate investor in New York. And she's my partner on my first deal, and then my most recent deal in Ohio. And it's, she has always pushed me, and I met her at the first mastermind. And then I met two Latinos at that same with that same networking group that introduced me to the partners that I have on 3 deals that have been great. And I think yesterday's conversation, it came from a connection where I was referred to this group from some of the teams that were part of a development group, a cohort for minority developers, because that's my next goal. I've seen the projects that belong to somebody else, but now working on my own development projects. So that's 3 right there, and it's 3 big ones. Yeah. And I think when you get into these rooms, when you get into these networking events, and just genuinely be yourself. Like, if you don't know something, say, I don't know it. If you have value, bring that value. Like, whatever you can do to get into these rooms without compromising what you believe in will move mountains for you. These rooms gave me access, they gave me resources, and really moved me beyond what my W-2 had done for me, where I had sold off millions of dollars and I have created millions of dollars for others. So it's how I shifted to build next gen legacy. So I really believe, through God's hands, by putting me in these rooms, it has changed the trajectory of my legacy. And I want to share that with others. I want to show other women how to do this. I want to give them the belief that it is possible, no matter your situation. Like, no matter what kind of situation you're in, look for a way. Where do you want to be and where are you at? And then let's figure out a way to get you to where you want to be. We just have to know that everything happens when you take action, and it does take time. It doesn't happen overnight, and it is scary. It is scary, but whatever your fear is, it's okay. That means that you're meant to face it and take it on so you can move up to that next level.
I love that, Cecilia. And one thing that I heard that I really, really appreciate is patience. So, you talked about, you got something out of that first meeting that felt immediate. And there were relationships that you built at that first meeting that took time to develop. And so every investment that we make in relationships and in maintaining those relationships do help us down the road, even if it's not immediately. And it points back to something that you started with, which is, always bringing your value, always being, your best you, and then the relationships and the outcomes will come. So I have really enjoyed this conversation. I thank you for your time and for the work that you're doing to build wealth in our community, both for your family and for others. Why don't you share with us how people can find you, and then we'll take a leave.
All right. You can find me at CeciliaCossio.com. I am Cecilia Cossio on Instagram and on LinkedIn, Cecilia Castillo Cossio. Any of those 3 platforms, if you go on there and send me a message, I will definitely respond. So I thank you guys for your time, United Latinas. You guys have done a great job. I've been with you guys over a year. I say you guys, but it's us now, right? Like, I'm part of it. And I'm so grateful to be part of this organization and meeting all these wonderful ladies this last week or 2 weeks ago in Boston. Was really another eye-opener for me as well. So you guys, thank you for everything you're doing and all the time and effort you put into this.
Thank you so much. On behalf of United Latinas, the board, and our members, thank you for joining us this Wednesday, and we hope to see you next week.